Hello and welcome to the 56th episode of Rambling Weekly. I am evidently dying. This is a prolonged event, so but yeah, we're gonna talk about I'm just gonna talk about like coping and whatnot. We're gonna go that route. First, we're gonna take a break. I'm gonna get something to drink, and we'll go from there. So stick around. Welcome back. I had a brain fart and I kept on trying to like start it from the beginning again, as in the first part, and then no, I don't know what's wrong with me. Anyways, excuse me. That is Dawn of, or like the Dawn of Ys. That is the opening for Ys 4, and I really like the PC Engine version with the saxophone. I wish I could find it, in the sense of none of the albums that I have has that version. No, no, not allowed to have nice things, I guess. But this version will do. It's good. It's enjoyable. Just that sax is so saxy. It's just, yeah. Well, what can you do? Anyways, how are you doing? Hope you're doing well. I'm doing pretty good. Uh, Doing this sort of like the night before kind of thing. Uh, a little kind of cutting it a little close, but that's okay. We'll get through this. What's been going on? I've been getting through Redwall. That's coming along. I don't know if Nostalgia King listens to these or whatnot, but I'm probably about halfway through the book, and it's coming along. I'm as I'm going through, I'm trying to formulate how I want to do it. I mean, if there's anything different I want to try to do for it or something, we'll figure it out and go as the thing takes wings and flies. um, I might have mentioned it before, but aiming sometime in probably starting like next month towards the end of it, maybe. I don't know. It depends. But I wanting to do the travel vlog thing, so that's going to kind of become a thing. The other idea I had and was kind of working on, it fell apart pretty quickly. I mean, that kind of happens with groups a lot of times, and not to say that jaded or anything of the sort. It's just partially, not knowing kind of how to work things out, or not really having a good game plan. And I forewarned about this. I was like you kind of need to, be. I was telling my coworker. I was like, you gotta these things you gotta plan. You gotta take them kind of like one step at a time, sort of thing. And instead, I find out that it's just kind of like, I don't think it's gonna work. Because there's the just things happen, we'll say. But but oh, let's see, that um uh, a different coworker I should have for next episode, but I still want to get that other one on, and just it might take a little bit longer than I was expecting. That's all right. There's a lot of guests I'm trying to line up and stuff, and next week should be one with a different coworker. So that'll be fun. Get some guests. Woo. What else has been going on? Finished Resident Evil 1. That was nice. Did that on stream. Woohoo. Uh, that getting editing done. So sitting about a quarter of the way through the book. Because it's about 40 chapters. It's probably a little bit more than 40 chapters, because I actually segment a couple times with chapter like 10A and 10B. for reasons. Not good ones, maybe, but for reasons. That the what else has been going on? So I'm getting through that. I'm doing that. Yeah, that's been about it. I kind of feel a little under the weather. I think I might have a cold or something. I don't know. I'm getting the plague. I'm dying. Spoiler alert. I mean, it's got to happen sometime, right? Anyways, there's not really much else. I've been keeping up with getting workouts in, getting up still early. Not today nor yesterday, but that's because I'm not like dying sick, but I'm just I'm just a little crusty. Not like Krusty the Clown, like hey kids. Not quite like that. Can't even do the voice right now. Oh no, I'm sad. Can do the laugh sort of. Anyways, really not too much outside of just like crazy things happening in the world going on. And that's the world. The world does its own spinning, and I'm just going to sit right here and do this. This is not necessarily cozy, comfy time, but we just keep it a little easier. Try to keep it a little calmer there, I guess. Outside of the over here, ooh, that thing. So it still gives me the creeps. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't think there's. You know what? Now that I think about it, the weather like skyrocketed and then it's dropped back down. It probably has a little bit to do with it because I was out and about a whole bunch, and it was really nice. It was really, really great. And then the very next, actually, I think it was like later that day. It could have been allergies or something seeping in. I don't know. Every now and again, especially springtime, it's like, hey. And usually it's dust stuff, but I think ragweed. I think it's dust and ragweed are the two that can get to me. But I don't know. Like, as much as I want to say that, I don't know. I don't think it's that. I think I am like sick because I keep sneezing, and I'm not one to really sneeze unless it's very dusty, and it's not like it's dusty right now or anything. I did clean. Like I spent a sizable chunk of a couple days off that I had cleaning, or at least just on one day. I'd clean for a little bit and then I would sort of organize some stuff because I still have a bunch of stuff in like totes and everything. I just need to buy more things. I guess it's in the same hand of like the false hope of like possibly having like a roommate or something. Yeah, I have a 2-bedroom, and this one's the office. It's just kind of like, whatever. It is what it is. Yeah, so I was just doing a bit of cleaning and everything as well, so that's kind of been nice because it wasn't like it was super messy or anything, but it's in here I had papers all festooned across the floor and everything. I was like, oh, I should probably organize these. And then like just things around the periphery. I was just like, I should declutter this and everything. So that has been situated. So yeah. But yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this section. And we're gonna take a break and we're gonna get into the topic. So stick around. there was that Release of the Far West Ocean, I think. I write these things down. Yes, it was. I know things every now and again. But yeah, that's the opening for E6 Arc of Depishtum, which is a good step in the direction of the more 3D environments and stuff like that. They really hit rock bottom there with Ys 5, and then they're like, oh, what do we do? And then they're like, well, let's put it on ice and then come back to it. And that's what they did. They put it on ice and then came back to it, and it was kind of, it was all right. I like Gash. Gash is a cool character. The whole arc thing is a bit odd, but not like surprising per se. It's just like, oh, ancient laser technology. But I mean, what is science but magic? Understood. Anyways, the topic, I have it written down in my wonderful book O Topics here, is the as it's titled, Go Now Tenderly, and it's all about coping in certain ways. And I guess I should have been a little bit more specific in that. Coping in the sense of how to put it, when something happens, how do we approach it? What is our reaction? Because there's a lot of times we can react and be like, and there's a lot of times we can react and be like, but so I'm gonna read off of this thing because so you can get an idea where I'm going with this. So to to let not the outer control the inner. That's kind of the gist. That's that's like how you cope, right? So if there's if there's a whole bunch of stuff going on and it is being stressful, how do you, like, all that outward pressure needs to be met with equal pressure from within pushing out to keep you from just kind of crumpling into a ball in the most physical scientific sort of sense. You can do it through tenderness, you can do it through being callous, it can be a lot of things. Like, how do we learn to cope? And a lot of people, I feel like, have leaned more and more into this, for lack of a better way to put it, the tsundere sort of prickly demeanor but soft gooey inside, but only those that they allow inside. It's a very sad place to be with it, but I understand it, because a lot of people will take take advantage of somebody's niceness, somebody's naivete, somebody's generosity. There's a lot of that, and that's not to say that's everybody. And yeah, you should be a little bit more. You should know what you can and cannot give, right? This is rolling back to, caveat emptor episode and stuff. Let the buyer beware. This goes for your emotional investments, your social investments, your time. These are all things that you yourself have to be responsible for. And there's two extremes to look at on that. There's at least, I guess I'll say three. There's three extremes to look at on this. One is to be devoid of everything. To just the idea, like a very stoic idea, like stoic philosophy, stoicism kind of idea of it'll, que sera, sera, it'll be what it'll be. I get it. I understand that. And there are a lot of times that I lean very heavy into that sort of thinking. But in the same hand, it's, if you go that route, you've chosen to allow whatever it is to be, and that you're just like, I'm not going to let it affect me one way or the other, or I'm to the best of my abilities. And that has a lot of its own problems of sometimes you just need to cut through the Gordian knot of whatever problems there are, and instead it's just, you just sort of go around it and not deal with it. And it's like, it's kind of need to do that. The other two, one is this very tender or very just empathetic, that gets very how to put it, controlling, where it's like, oh yes, I feel for you, but you need to do things my way, kind of thing. And it's like, no, like, as frustrating as it may be to have a friend or something not really be able to work out some of the problems or not see the best advice, kind of thing. It's like it's kind of similar to the, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Like, they've got to be able to understand why it is, like, why they're in the situation that they're in, why they're feeling maybe so miserable, why and whatnot. And not just on a surface level. It's got to be like, somebody can say, oh, I know how I got from like to R, from going from A to F to M. That's the alphabet, right? AFMR. 1 for 4. But you can say it and like understand it, but there's a difference between just kind of like seeing the pathway as opposed to being able to like conceptualize it in a way, to like rationalize it, I guess. It's like being able to regurgitate information, but then knowing why that information is the way that it is. I guess that's the way I would look at it. And then the other extreme, I like to make me a little eyeballs. You go my shoes. What is wrong with me? But on the other extreme is the very callous approach of this sort of almost like attacking, conquerable sort of, I'm gonna bend it to my will sort of thing, and take this approach, and nothing's gonna stop me, and like that's the cope. The cope is that either I've taken so much damage, or I just don't like this, so I'm going to forcibly change it through more aggressive means. I mean, they kind of mirror each other and whatnot, but at least those two on the outer rims of things, because I don't know, because I said so. But for one, the more emotional side, it's too beastly, right? Like, I kind of like the idea that we as people, you have to have the emotional side, the intelligence side, the physical side, as well as like a spiritual side, in a sense of a and what I mean by those there, like emotional, that one makes sense. The mental one, that makes sense. The physical one is like the actual do, or just like physical being, and then the spiritual is kind of like your will, what your drive is, and almost like the cards that you hold to your chest that you some people, you may show some people, but in the same hand, that card is ever changing. To if you don't really have it nailed down, I'll say. I mean, to some degree, those things are always in flux, but I think the spiritual one in particular is one that, like, Nietzsche's really was trying to forewarn and whatnot, be like, hey guys, we really need to think of something, because we're going to be in trouble. And you've seen how that worked out, but and I kind of believe that to a certain extent, is that you need something to believe in, and it is concerning when you have a lot of the just horrible things that are going on, as well as just information that has no like real effect on us, seemingly, but like on a subconscious level it does, where it's like, well, we're all gonna die, what does it matter? Oh well, there's the cold embrace of the death of the universe when everything just kind of just gets cold and quiet and nothing there. That weighs on people, and it's like especially like the death of the universe thing, if that does happen, it's that's going to be a while. Like that's some trillions of years or something afterwards. Why is that affecting you now? Like kind of thing. And you get some people who are like, well, reincarnation and whatnot. And that's another cope, right? To reincarnate. I don't like being a human, so when I die, maybe if I was bad, I get to be a rodent or something. I don't know quite how it all sort of works and everything. But it also is like, well, it's kind of incentivizing to go beyond the life and rationalize why we shouldn't just be jerks, which is always a weird thing, right? It's like, well, why are you trying to rationalize not doing harmful things to others? Like that to me always is like, oh, the golden rule: do unto others as you'd have done unto yourself. The fact that is a golden rule, and that it should kind of tell you that mankind kind of needs a little bit of a stick for an incentive. And with these different kind of extreme paths there, there's too much care. I'm very much under the impression that without challenge or some sort of obstacles, there is a regression of the spirit, a almost deadening of just the spark that you just kind of either get comfortably numb with it, or you just kind of settle into a groove. And some people, that's fine. They'll just settle into a groove. I myself, that would drive me batty. I would go crazy if that was me. Like I can't do that. And I know that kind of probably puts me more on the side of neuroticism to some degree. Obviously it's there. I write books. Like there is a neuroticism to be found there. Guarantee it. I've seen my notes. I may not be like is it Charlie Day's character or whatever from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got the wall of all the different conspiracy sorts of things, and he's like, yeah, that that was the mess I was cleaning up earlier. Was my earlier this week was the just the everything and everywhere. That is my story notes and stuff. Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that one. But yeah, so there's the too much B side of just this grand, just lean heavy into emotional. And I think part of the reason why we have skewed this way, and I've talked with some coworkers about this, was since the advent of Wikipedia and the strengthening of the algorithms for Google search and stuff. Sorry, Ask Jeeves. But you lost out in the end. Is that when those things became a big deal, people became very blasé when it came to information. Just kind of hand wave it away. It's like, I can just Google it. I can look it up on Wikipedia. And then they just look it up and then that's it. So they don't... The intellectual side and the informational side has really fallen off in a lot of ways. There's a lot of stuff, and I think it plays into the same camp, I'll argue, that these, a lot of these, science articles and stuff like that, it's similar in that, you're reading it, but you're not doing it. So in a way, it's not really stoking the intellectual fire so much, if that makes sense. Say like I'm a mechanic, and I learn all about marine biology just because, like it doesn't really assist in what your main focus is. It's nice to kind of round it out, but in some hands it almost feels like you have like so many points, right? Playing the D&D game, you only have so many points to a lot, or you just have bad rolls, and you start to in trying to round out on those things. You gotta be cautious, I would say. Like it's like with hobbies, you got so many hobbies. This is something I kind of mentally noted and was a little bit worried about when I was talking to the guest for next week that I'll have, about how, oh hey, I do this, I do this, I do this. Oh boy, this is a lot of great. Like, hey, you end up, you end up having to draw from different wells, right? And the same thing goes with the callousness, the almost calculating roboticness of just, or I guess the robotic one is more of the not being emotionally hammered or anything like that. That's more of the robotic side of things, where it's you just kind of, sort of. You have your formula in your head, so when thing happens, the formula tells you don't react in a certain way, and so you don't react in a certain way. At least, I guess in a certain way, we're all fleshy robots to some degree. Some better functioning than others, but more in the sense of less emotional, just very, I guess just not necessarily in the way of impressionable, but less impetus to kind of go out and be your own sort of thing. It's more of, I'm going to be my own in this little bubble. And then the other extreme is just the more violent, I guess. I guess I'd say more aggressive. Aggressive would probably be a better word for it. Of just this, no. And just a coping, because the aggressive one doesn't necessarily mean that it stems from inside initially. Like, it could be because of being hurt so much. They have that hurt people sort of line that sticks with a lot of people, and it's partially, with it, like, let's say with the cycle of abuse, a lot of times that's a strong chain to have to break, and there are certain ways to do it, but you just have to find a way to do it. Otherwise, it is, it's being impressed upon you that this is an okay behavior when it's not. And there's nobody there that's either going to stop it. This is why it is such a heinous thing to not speak out in an injustice or in a wrong. Because if you don't do that, like, there's two things about that. One, there's the faux ones who just do it strictly online, just to kind of be a part of the crowd, and then they're not really doing that so much when in person, sort of thing. I remember getting back to the States after being gone for a long time, and this woman was being accosted, not like physically, but they like said some pretty heinous things to her. And like, this is like 3 days after I'm back, and I'm just kind of dumbfounded. I'm like, what is going on? And it wasn't until like after they left and a couple aisles down I was just like, why didn't I say anything? And I went and I apologized to the woman, because I was like, I'm sorry, I should have stood up, because that's not right. And and she kind of laughed it off, but she was like, yeah, that's right. If my family was here, they would have whooped their butt. I'm like, I get that, but it's still like, it's not appropriate. This is gross behavior. I'll do better next time. And I know that doesn't help for what you just had to deal with, but like, yeah, moving forward, do better, kind of thing. So that sort of thing, right? That's you just, I don't know where I was going with that. I got just sharing stories off the top of my head. I guess it's that's a way of try to make things better, so that because the coping thing, it feels like there's a lot of regression, a lot of and I don't mean like worsening. I know I will go through this every now and again when something just kind of gut punches me, and it's just that down. I got that down span of time, and I'm just like, man, everything is poop. This is garbage. I hate it. Just like that, and and then eventually I get out of that, which is probably not a good thing, all things considered. However, I don't know. I in one hand, I think it's because everybody who knows me and sees me, even through just like YouTube stuff or just in person and everything, knows how I am. And I have a bad habit of really masking that stuff. That not even through like glib sort of cheeky comments or anything, but just not showing it. Part of that's those kind of stoicism mentalities and stuff. Part of it's also like what's the the story about the clown goes to see a therapist or whatever, and he says he's sad, and he's like, oh, I got the perfect remedy for you. Go see Pagliola, the great clown, and his show. And it's like, doctor, don't you realize that I am Pagliola the clown or whatever? Kind of like that. And especially when in person, I know, like, I know to some degree I annoy certain people. But if they're gonna call me a friend, or if they're gonna be my friend, that sort of thing, you gotta know that I'm gonna, like, a lot of times be like, hey, how's it going? Everything going all right? Like, it's and I know for some people it can be probably like annoying or needling at a certain degree, but for a very long time I never got that. I would not get any sort of checkup, we'll say. So I know how heavy that can be to have those problems. And yeah, to some degree it's good to speak out about it, but then in the same hand, if everybody's just always complaining about stuff, or everybody's always stressed out about stuff, that person that is kind of holding on to it themselves is like, well, all of this is already, like, if they're venting like this, that means they've got all this other stuff, and so they internalize it as, oh, if I just vent this just is going to compound and add to their problems. I mean, this is stuff that everybody really, I think, is understanding of, but maybe doesn't quite, the gears don't quite rotate when they hear it, kind of thing. It's like or like they wouldn't expect it or suspect it just because let's say what was that man's name, like Twitch, the guy who's on the Ellen DeGeneres show and everything. It's something like that, right? Where somebody has all of this joy that they try to give to other people, but it could be because nobody gives them that joy. I don't know, that doesn't really make sense that way. They're trying to lighten up everybody else because they know how dark it is inside. And that's where some people will harness that darkness for more aggressive manners. Some people try to do it to be more jovial, or try to brighten up things, brighten up room. life and whatnot. And as time has gone on, it's been a very odd thing to see how to cope with things is more of to share with things. And then that's where they want to say, oh well, share stuff, share, talk with your friends and whatnot. But as things have progressively worsened in certain ways, there are people, more and more people, like in the States in particular, talking and saying they don't have a friend, that they don't have like those sorts of connections. And it's like, if they want, if just simply saying, hey, have a friend and like share with them, but if they don't have a friend to share those things, like a therapist isn't going to solve all of those problems. I mean, they're never going to solve all of those problems anyways, because it's the inward issues that you have to grapple with. That's the it's the test of life, and it's an open book test, and a lot of the pages are empty. So you just kind of have to figure out what answers work for you, what answers don't, and maybe not. Maybe you don't even think about if the answers cause any harm or not. Maybe you're on that side of things where you're just like, this is the answer, and to hell with everybody else. That's, you just have to be able to, I guess, live with whatever decisions you end up making, kind of thing. But that I don't know. I mean, like I said before, I will kind of, if something bad, really negative happens to me, I will go into a funk, and that funk may last a while. And there's not really any good way that I can explain how I get out of it. Like, that's kind of the unfortunate thing about it too, is that I know whatever the next funk ends up being. This is why I try to, I guess, lean into a bit of the stoicism thing, because that's certainly a way to weather the storm, to stem the tide, to take that body shot. But in a way, you're not really. I feel like when you do that, you don't really process the damage, or like you take it and you're like, oh yeah, that hurt. But in the same hand, you don't understand it to be able to reflect back to maybe try to not have that damage happen again, I guess. At least that's what it feels like me. That, or I'm just simple and I just like to make the same mistakes over and over again. So, yeah, it is what it is. That's, like I said, that's just kind of how, it's just what we have to deal with. The joys of life. But yeah, so like that's what I got. I don't think I've got anything else here. I'm kind of more in the sense of, I don't necessarily bounce between the two, I would say, or the three. I kind of stick with more trying to be empathetic to a certain degree, but I do know that I will scale heavy into that third trail of just, yeah, I'm going to do this. And it's not usually, the do this more probably leans to when I'm doing like the podcast or writing or something. It's like I've got to put on this prickly armor and just kind of get to it, otherwise nobody else, like I wanted to say, like, it's my stories, nobody else is going to write my stories. And for better and for worse, that's just kind of the attitude that I've taken. So I don't know, how do you cope? Let me know. What are some, maybe I'll learn something that'll help me cope with just things in general, because there's also something else that's important to point out. Even though I went on about like just the negative side of things, there's also the having to cope with the good things, right? It's kind of like the paradox of hedonism of, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is good. At some point, you've just got to be like, oh, maybe this isn't so good. But a lot of times it might be too late to reverse track on some of that. Not always, but you find yourself in a new, comfortable, numbing spot, then you're just like, oh, okay. How do you cope with just having like everything good? Like, I'll have like a couple days where it'll be like, oh, everything's going really nicely. Where's the trouble? And then all of a sudden, bam, very like, there's the trouble. Oh, how I've really not missed thee. So, but yeah, let me know how you cope and stuff. I'd be very interested to hear it. And if you don't feel like expressing it publicly, I guess on through comments and stuff, I'd understand. However, maybe somebody else might take that and it might help them in some way. If you still don't feel like it, you can always just message me. I'm not against that. So yeah, well, you're going to take a break and then we will get to a quote. So stick around. Welcome back. Hold on. Welcome back. That there was, we'll go with Silent Desert. I really like that song. It totally gives me vibes of like Trans-Siberian Orchestra. Well, what's that? The Beethoven's Last Night. It's probably my favorite album of just music. I really like that song, that album and stuff. And just, I know it's a good song, and that one's from East Origin, which is a pretty good game. Anyways, the quote for this episode, I'm going to do a little bit of reading here. I'm going to give you the overview for this person. This person's name is Margaret Overton. She wrote a book called Good in a Crisis, a memoir. And the overview is, during the 4 years of physician Margaret Overton's acrimonious divorce, she dated widely and indiscriminately, determined to find her soulmate and live happily ever after. But then, she discovered she had a brain aneurysm. She discovered it at a particularly awkward moment on a date with one of many Mr. Wrongs. So, Good in a Crisis is Overton's laugh-out-loud, funny story of dealing with the most serious of life's problems. Loss of life, loss of love, loss of innocence. It's about spirituality, self-delusion, even sheer stupidity. It's written from a physician's perspective, but it's not about medicine per se. It's about coming of age. It's about coming of age in adulthood, an effort to help others through the awful events that can cluster in midlife. She does this with laughter and the recognition that you may come out the other end, as Overton did, definitely humbled, and only slightly smarter. The quote of hers that we're going with is, everything can change in a heartbeat. It can slip away in an instant. Everything you trust and treasure, whatever brings you comfort, comes at a terrible cost. Health is temporary. Money disappears. Safety is nothing big, but a big and safety is nothing big, an illusion. Learn how to read, Taylor. So when the moment comes and everything you depend on changes, or perhaps someone you love disappears or no longer loves you, must disaster follow? Or would you somehow adapt? Now, it's a heavy, edgy hammer kind of being swung there at first. Of just, oh, how can you trust anything? It's just gonna, it could just leave you. It's an illusion. Woo. And that is the concern, right? That's the kind of the thinking of the future of, oh, this could be trouble. I need to, this is what do I do? Do you just let it kind of crush you? And I guess to some degree, I like it, reflecting on myself. There's been plenty of instances where it's like, it crushes, but then kind of push back. I guess that's sort of my, how would you call it? The underdog sort of mentality of, I'm not gonna let it keep me down forever, kind of thing, which is not the greatest. Not the greatest way to go about it. But yeah, like, so how, like, when those when those things happen, how do you deal with it? Is it a disaster? Do you, like, it's also mentioning, like, how, somehow you adapt. Obviously that doesn't happen for everybody. There are things that when it becomes known, somebody makes a decision to do something very drastic, and they just kind of put the period on their life and just be like, okay, this is it, I'm done. And that's one way to answer the question of life, is just to be like, okay, I've had my fill. But I guess that also makes you wonder, how bleak it is, sort of thing. And of course, like I mentioned before, there's some people who will irradiate with energy and joy. Like, they do that because they want to see that in other people. Maybe not necessarily to have it seen in them, but they want to see it in other people, and maybe they don't necessarily see it in other people. So it's almost like that. It's a very dystopian sort of thing going on, like Brazil or what have you, where it's like you potentially have the attention, maybe, or at least have the opportunity to try to imbue what you perceive as like a good thing, of trying to be more joyous, trying to be more caring, but you're not necessarily seeing that. And more and more of just this regression into ourselves through technology and just lack of bonds being created for one reason or another. And part of that's obviously a fearful thing of what does one, like, why. A lot of times it feels like, definitely not with the people that I know and stuff, but a lot of times it feels like with people that I've interacted with, like, not my friends, but the people who I'm like, maybe a friend, it ends up being very transactional. And it could be my defense mechanism when it comes to trying to be how to put it, the ball of joy that I try to be, that it's like, unless you're doing something for me, I really don't have an interest in being around you. I guess that's what I mean. And it's not necessarily just me, but just from observing things. And I know I've said this before, it's like, how does one do good for you? Well, sometimes it isn't necessarily that they benefit you in the way of like pushing you upward, but more of that, rising tide, raising all ships. And the benefit is that you helping them up. Like that's something along the lines of kind of like how charity, like, or like I don't remember where I heard it from, but I remember hearing something about like how, like, doing a service for somebody, it's going to cost you. That's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? It's going to cost you time, it's going to cost you energy, finances, what have you. But you take that on knowing that, and so almost like a muscle, maybe, in doing that, it allows you to be able to do greater acts of service and stuff like that. But yeah, I guess that's the one that kind of came out to me. Was just about like with coping and whatnot. You see the how do you get around it? Yeah, and you try to adapt. All these things that can be gone in an instant. Those are scary thoughts, and I think that's where people will kind of be like, which is weird because there's a lot of in the instance of doing stuff of like having fun or going out. People are very keen on doing that, but then it's like the instance of things breaking down. It's like, oh, this is horrible. And yeah, as somebody who has taken their fair share of body shots when it comes to to things, it's just like, okay, all right, cool, thanks, life. I think everybody gets them. Yeah, and you just kind of, or at least I picked myself back up at some point and just go like, okay, trying this again. Maybe this time put some different thoughts into it. Otherwise, you're just going to repeat the same mistakes. So, yeah, that is it for me. I hope you enjoy your day, weekday, and everything in between. Yeah, thanks for listening. And the outro we're going with is Theme of Adol 2001. I like I don't know if it's a pan flute or something, but that, and I just like the melody of that. It's a good wholesome tune. So that's it. Thanks for listening and all that sort of fun jazz, and I'll see you next week. Bye.